Hello and welcome to the Revolut Insider Podcast, where we explore Revolut's rocket ship from the inside out, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Alex Kirill, and today we are very privileged to have Ankit Khemka, Head of Growth Expansion. Hi, Ankit.
Hi, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Good, thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. We're just missing each other too, because I'm here in London and tomorrow you're going to Madrid.
Yeah, it was on purpose.
It was. You couldn't run from me. I tracked you down. I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about growth expansion and what goes into scaling Revolut into expansion markets, which is basically everything outside of Europe.
That's right.
Well, can you tell us a little fun fact about yourself before we really dive into it?
Sure. Well, I don't know how much of a fun fact this is, but yeah, I've lived and worked in India, Latin America, Mexico, Europe, Spain, New York, US, and now I'm back in London. So I've crossed the Atlantic far too many times.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's been great. And the crazy part about that was when I moved to Mexico from India, that's like a very different move. I don't know, a lot of my friends have done that and did not know the language, did not know the people, did not eat the food. And yeah, just, dove right into it and just love every bit of that. So it was a great experience.
What a terrific experience. Well, it's incredible to see the growth and reach of Revolut around the world in just 8 years. Can you tell me about this journey you've witnessed and how you've been a part of it?
Well, people have been reading about Revolut. I myself have been doing that before I joined the business. And it's truly a rocket ship in the true sense of the word, right? In the early years of Revolut, I'm saying 2015 to 2020, a lot of the growth was mainly product-led, a lot of word of mouth. The product just scaled itself. So it was truly phenomenal. It was one of the best companies to look out for in Europe. Starting 2021, when we started to invest in marketing, the business started to grow a lot faster, which is great. The product gave us the platform to then be able to scale it. So I remember in 2021, we were celebrating 15 million customers. And now we just celebrated 35 million customers.
Incredible.
That's incredible. And the best part about this is the mindset we have. And the mindset is, this is still day one and we're just getting started. And every day in expansion, to be honest, is like that. There's so many 0 to 1 journeys. We just launched New Zealand. We just launched Brazil. It's a 0 to 1 journey all over again.
And how do we look at expanding into new markets or countries?
Yeah, there's a very nicely set up framework now around expansion, which goes from scoping countries to figuring out which countries to launch. And then there's the framework around what will it take to launch a country? When does a country go into launch? I'll specifically deep dive on growth because that's what's relevant coming from me, right?
Sure, yeah.
So we've set up frameworks around how does a country go from launch to a mature country. Let's compare that to a developed market like Spain or UK for us, no?
Okay.
So we've divided into different stages where a country goes from launch to stabilization to optimization and then to growth. And we look at sustainable growth mechanism. So we've built that along now, and especially on the expansion side of things, and it's looking really, really good.
Neat. Yeah. I mean, we can see that it's looking good because we're growing every day. And what's the future ambition for expansion countries and how do we reach it?
For sure. Let me answer this in 2 steps. No?
Okay.
First is, what's the mission behind this on the expansion side of things? And the mission is to become a leading global digital bank covering 60% of the world's GDP, right? By 2024, hopefully we should cover 50% of GDP. And then by 2026, we should reach like 60%. So overall, very ambitious goal. I have told you a little bit about the frameworks we've set up, but where do we want to reach with this framework, right? Or what's the end goal? So we've just gone through our long-term product strategy. We've covered expansion in that. So I can tell you a few things about what we are aiming for.
Please.
So by 2026, I think we should grow, if I look at sign-up numbers, we should grow by 15x in this time period, maybe more, in expansion markets. So this is outside of Europe, right? That's a pretty ambitious goal. So it's going to be pretty exciting. And then finally, we want to be the top 5 finance apps in mature expansion markets by 2026. So if you see the staging framework, pretty much then results into goals that we want to hit, where we cannot go and be number 1 right away in any market, which is, I hope we could do that.
That would be great, right?
That would be great. But very interestingly, for example, when we launched Moldova, the product, it's obviously the competition is low, but we saw in Light App that we were top 5 apps in 3-4 weeks. It's just the product is great.
Yes. Do you have any other success stories like that?
We've seen some good traction already in expansion, like Australia. If you look at the number of users who've signed up, we've grown 2x in the last 12 months, and now we are in the top 12 apps in the country. We started at 51 at the end of last year. Singapore, now we are top 10, and we should get into top 5 hopefully soon.
That's great. Well, congratulations on the work that you and your team are doing.
It's all the team.
Yes. And what can other companies learn from our expansion strategy?
Yeah. So first of all, I think there's a lot of learning along the way. Each country is so different. You find out so many things while you're building it that it's like almost every day is a new challenge. And I'm sure the product teams who are building this feel the same. But I think what one tip I can give maybe is, the importance of, building a framework, the importance of focusing on KPIs to define your goals, not only the end goal, but everything in the middle really, really helps. It helps you decide where you want to get to in 6 months from now, a year from now, and so on. So I think it's the boring stuff that no one wants to do. But to be honest, setting a framework and making sure that you're following a rule book that you've set for yourself really helps. It keeps you in check and also keeps you honest.
I love that. Yeah. Sometimes new companies or companies that are growing make mistakes along the way. What do you say about learning from trial and error?
I mean, obviously the goal is to make as less mistakes as possible. But then I would say fail fast and learn fast, right? And hopefully do not make the same mistake again.
That's great. Yes.
Yeah, I think that is something that we also imbibe in our teams. Like, just don't make the same mistake again because you've already learned from it. So now you're going back in time if you repeat those same mistakes.
Of course. And you mentioned about expansion. Let's talk a little bit about you, if that's okay.
Sure.
You've worked in different locations and you've grown into new markets. So tell me more about this.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really exciting and challenging working in different markets. You're solving very different problems, right? So one, you're trying to learn the business, which every business is different. Then you add a layer on top of it, which is it's a different market. So you have to understand the local nuances of that market. Mexico is so different from Spain. Spain is so different from the US. And finally, you're managing very different teams in the sense that how you manage someone in Mexico sometimes culturally is different than how do you manage a team in India.
Yeah.
And I noticed that firsthand. So it was a very rewarding experience. And I saw that in Revolut. When I joined Revolut, I was able to use that experience a lot. One, now we have teams in different geographies. I have teams in the US, Singapore, Australia. I have teams in Brazil. And it has really helped me understand them better and manage them better. That is one. And secondly, we will be launching in some markets soon, like Mexico and India. We already live in the US, and these are markets I've worked with already. So hopefully I can use some of that experience to grow Revolut.
I'm sure you will. I have no doubt. Are there any big takeaways or learnings or failures during your travels working in different geographies?
Quite a lot of them. Let me think through it. I think first maybe is never underestimate how different every country is. For example, when we were running growth in Latin America, it was 8 markets. And to be honest, strategy would change quite a bit depending on the market. And this was an e-commerce store, but still it varied quite a lot. And that is just Latin America, right? So
yes,
given how many countries we are present in, we really have to focus and prioritize localization. It's a very important piece for us. And then a funny thing for us in one of my experiences was like just the size of the US market.
Yeah.
It is incredible. And you're from LA. So
I'm from there, yeah.
It was just incredible when we were working in my last company. We could just see how big the US is and how massive the market is.
And how different I think it varies from where you are with regions, right?
A lot, yeah. And failures, there have been quite a few. For example, I launched a direct-to-consumer brand in Spain, and it didn't go well just because the market was very different. And while all the previous experience was helpful, that local knowledge just needed to be there.
And I think that talks about the mistakes that we make, right? Is learn from your mistakes quickly, improve so you don't make the same mistakes again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Always.
And you've talked about living in Mexico, living in Spain. How's your Spanish?
It's a little better than just ordering a beer. Okay. I can speak basic Spanish. I can hold a conversation, but I've hacked around it, to be honest. So I learned Spanish in like 4 or 5 classes, and then I did not take any more classes. But what I did was I learned everything in the present tense for the verbs.
Okay.
So when I speak to someone in Spanish, I only use it in present tense. I cannot speak past or future.
Hey, at least you can get your point across more or less.
More or less, yeah.
And how does that work for you when you collaborate with different teams of different cultures and backgrounds around the world?
What I've noticed is that having a little understanding of someone's culture really goes a long way. when you meet someone from Spain and you know a little bit about their country and you bring that into the conversation, it just eases up things a little bit. That has really helped me. Plus, I get super excited if I meet someone from Mexico, for example.
Really?
Because we've traveled so much there. So yeah, it really, really helps. And more often than not, people appreciate if you put in a little extra effort to know them and their culture. That really goes a long way.
Definitely. And I think that goes beyond working in a team, because just when we meet people is making that connection, right? Finding these things that tie us together and these similarities that we have. I think that's the point of not only personal relationships, but also businesses where there's like a genuine connection.
Yeah. And again, helps the conversation, helps the relationship, and makes things a lot more fun.
Yeah. And since you've moved so much, you've moved around, you've started brand new in multiple places, what would you say to someone who might be hesitant to step outside their comfort zone or take a leap of faith and to explore new opportunities?
I mean, firstly, everyone is different, and I appreciate if someone is not comfortable doing that. If I had to encourage someone to do it, I would say, what's the worst case scenario? Compare that to what potentially could you gain from this?
Yeah.
Again, probably a too logical way of thinking through this, but like you basically compare those two, and more often than not, a new experience won't hurt.
Frameworks, right?
Well, yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more Insider Views. Did you know you can use your Revolut app to make a charitable donation? Choose from a huge selection of charities and effortlessly donate money with a tap. Charities get 100% of your donation, so you can feel good knowing that your whole contribution goes straight to the cause you care about. Do some good with Revolut. And we're back here on the Revolut Insider Podcast with Ankit Khemka. How are you doing?
Good. Really enjoying this.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I was afraid that you would just walk out and run away.
Maybe in a bit.
Well, since I have you here, I want to ask you about the dream team, right? We often talk about that at Revolut. How important is hiring for the success of growth? Not just at Revolut, but in general.
Super important. Like, could not stress enough how important this is, but also how difficult hiring is, right? So a lot of my role is around hiring the right talent. And with my time at Revolut, I've learned a lot while bringing my previous experience into this. I really believe we at Revolut do it well, really well, when it comes to hiring. As a company, we focus a lot on making sure that we hire the right talent. Right can be defined in various different ways, but we've made sure we build processes that bring us the top talent from all over the world. And I really like how we do it. And I'll give you an example of how I do it.
Please.
It starts with the role itself, right? Making sure that you spend a lot of time defining the role. And one question that I ask myself is, do you know what this person will be doing 2 years from now? That allows me to define the role better. And then I start going and looking for the right person for the role. And the second thing that we do is building a good process. So focusing on building the right stages and the right set of interviews, finding the right fit, which means technical skills, which means problem solving, and which also means a cultural fit, right? Company culture.
Yes.
So a lot of these processes have already been built at Revolut, and they are super good. All it takes is for us to acknowledge that these processes exist for a reason and just do a good job at it.
Yeah. And trust the system, right? We have these frameworks in place. Again, we're talking about frameworks here, but it'll lead to what we're trying to achieve, hiring the right people for the right job and really building this dream team up.
Exactly. And you see that, right? This is the dream team.
It is, yeah. I also liked how you said about this 2-year vision that you have for your new hires. I think that also gives new hires and people that have started a clear vision of where they're going.
Because it helps them realize, what is my purpose here and what am I aiming for? And also think 3, 6, 12 months ahead of time in terms of how they want to perform, what do they want to aim for, and just keeps the overall motivation at a higher side.
Yeah, which is really important. And this can be done for any company, right? If you have this clear vision of where you want your employee to go, let them know, fill them in so that they also feel like they're part of this journey.
And you are building for the future when you do that.
Definitely. And besides the dream team, marketing obviously plays a huge role in expansion efforts, but I want to hear from you, the expert. How big of a role does it play?
I would say it's super important, but let me be very transparent on this. It all starts with the product. So stage 0 is product market fit. You need the right product in the market that gets the adoption that it deserves, right? Marketing then is stage 1. At stage 1, what you really try to do is reach out to the most relevant users, folks who are going to be power users, who are going to be your brand ambassadors. Post that, I would say, yes, product and marketing play equally important roles. We need to grow the business. We need to acquire more users, but also increase product usage for every user. So again, going back to the framework, I think it's product and marketing hand in hand. That is really, really important for expansion. And we've seen that with time, how we've launched a country, then we've realized that a few things need to be tweaked. So we slow down, fix it, and then start scaling again.
Great. Do you have any advice for people who might want to get into marketing?
I don't know if I can give advice right now, but all I can say is that marketing now is very different from what it was 20 years back or from the Mad Men days.
Okay.
It's much more data focused. It can get very technical. I mean, it's all about finding your passion. So one question I ask folks is, what do you really like about marketing? And narrow down then on things that you really want to be an expert at. The second thing is, the current day and age, you have to really focus on data and analytics, making sure that you understand data while you learn marketing channels. And most importantly, put the customer first. A good marketer basically can think from a customer's perspective and try to understand how did that make the customer feel.
And I think, when you focus on the customer, that really helps to deliver that wow, right?
Always. It's all about delivering wow.
And you mentioned that marketing has evolved from 20 years ago or the Mad Men days. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I mean, it's all from watching the series, basically. But you notice how creative was so important back then. It is equally important now. But they did not have access to data at a level that we do. Plus, with online marketing, it's so much easier to measure. So I would say marketing has been more data heavy now compared to 30, 40 years back, but also more complex now that you have so many other marketing channels. So it's good and bad.
Yeah. Can you talk about the first major brand campaign that you launched for Revolut?
Yeah, this one is very close to my heart. We launched the biggest brand campaign for Revolut August 21, which is called Your Way In. For me, the biggest piece here was the message behind it, where we were talking to the money underdog, providing them access to a world-class financial product. And it was a very exciting campaign. If you've seen the videos, we've talked about 6 different products. We've introduced the money underdog in each of those scenarios, and we got very good response to that.
Well, congratulations on the success of that. What would be your tips to an early stage company that wants to kick off their marketing and growth efforts?
Again, no advice. But all I can say is if I was launching an early stage business and if I had to kick off marketing, I would focus on acquiring power users first. So really focus on acquiring people who really need the product. The focus on the word really. And make sure measurement is in place. So you're measuring what you're doing. But ultimately, the early days is a lot of trial and error. Yeah.
Great. Well, I know that's not advice, but that's good information for anyone who might be interested in starting or kicking off their marketing and growth campaigns. We're almost out of time, but one final question for you. What advice would you give to yourself when you were just starting out in your career?
You know what they say, hindsight is a wonderful thing, right? So I've been pretty happy with the journey I've had so far, but the advice is the same that I've been saying to myself, which is I constantly ask myself, is this fun? And are you enjoying it? As long as what you do is fun, you never get tired of it, That is really helpful. And then there was something that someone told me very early on, which helped a lot. And he said, whenever you get a question, take 5 seconds before you start responding. Because maybe it's not necessary to go back right away with an answer. If you take 5 seconds, it really, really helps. That really stuck with me. I cannot promise that I've been using that 100%, but I try.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Ankit, for coming in and sharing your expertise with us. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And you can subscribe to the Revolut Insider podcast, follow us on LinkedIn and on Instagram at Revolut Insider. This has been the Revolut Insider podcast, where we explore Revolut's rocket ship from the inside out. Until next time, remember, the sky's not the limit, it's just the beginning. Revolut, change the way you money.